Drop any questions that you have for our speaker in that Q&A box, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end. And now I will pass it on over to Michelle, who is a sales engineer with Resonate.
Perfect. Thanks, Bridget. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking to you today here on behalf of Resonate, the leader in AI-powered consumer data. And we're really going to be focused on how you can use the Resonate data to augment, enhance, optimize, and refine some of the qualitative research that you might be focused on. I started my career in market research, running both quantitative and qualitative projects. This spanned everything from traditional focus groups to moderating online focus groups. And I started to come up against a lot of challenges that maybe some of you were experiencing. The projects took a long time, and we were always left with just as many questions as we started with, just new ones. I joined Resonate because I saw a solution that solved for a lot of the pain I was experiencing as a research professional. It was the platform that cut down on the time it took me to get to the right answers, and it answered that ultimate question of, what do we do with all of this? The Resonate Ignite platform puts robust, relevant consumer data at your fingertips, and it accelerates your ability to analyze and action those insights at scale. In today's changing marketplace, we really believe that the only way to adapt is to be focused on that competitive advantage. And we see that competitive advantage as the combination of knowing more about the consumer, about your customers, about your prospects, faster than your competition does, and being able to take action and make decisions on those insights that you get from that knowledge. The way that we do this is using, we combine the survey data that we get from US consumers with online behaviors that we observe at scale. So we have an ID graph that we have all major ID types. And then 6 times a year, we go into field talking to 120,000 respondents annually. They tell us everything from their behaviors to their attitudes. But in order to take that survey, they first have to agree to give us 90 days of their web behavior. So for everyone who takes our survey, we have 2 sources of truth. We have what they tell us, and then we have what we see them do online. And this allows us to bring in these machine learning predictive models to anticipate how everyone online would answer our survey. And then all of this exists as 230 million consumer profiles in a really user-friendly platform. To give you a sense of what that scope looks like, we're constantly refreshing this data set of 14,000 attributes that spans everything from who they are, basics like their demographic, their generation, their interests, their hobbies, their daily routines, but also really focused on the why. The data that allows you to make decisions about how to execute the right strategy and messaging for your target audience. What are those values, the purchase drivers, the preferences, the societal issues they're thinking about? And then ultimately, we allow you to take action on that by giving you a really robust data set around their media behaviors as well. So once you craft that right message, we tell you exactly where to put it. Now we have this across, dozens of verticals here, everything from health to apparel to telecom, food and beverage, restaurants. And within each of these verticals, we're going to be focused on the preferences, the product characteristics that cause them to choose within that vertical. We really do believe that this data is your competitive advantage. So now I'm going to show you how this works in action, explain exactly how we can augment, enhance, optimize, and maybe even replace that qualitative research. So for today's example, we're going to be focused on a financial services use case. All right, so let's imagine that there's a qualitative research pitch out there. And before that even begins, it's so important to make sure that you have the right, questions in that focus group room, that you're talking to the right audience. So we allow you to build out these complex personas right at the start as you're informing that research process. For this example, we're looking at, an online-only bank. They're looking to attract new customers. So I've started us off at the base of people who are looking to open an account within the next 6 months. Now, before I even start analyzing this audience, we're already giving you key metrics around what that opportunity is. So we're showing 19.5 million US adults that meet this audience criteria. And because we have that connectivity to the digital ecosystem, we can also give you an addressable size, which is the number of modeled devices we see that meet this audience criteria as well. And that's going to be really important in a bit when we talk about making this data actionable. So this base is really great, but it's pretty broad too, right? I'm working with an online-only bank, so I really want to make sure that I'm talking to a room of people who are also, interested in what I can provide. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see the full data menu that you have access to when you want to create, refine these bespoke personas. Everything from ESG, values and motivations, demographics, consumer preferences, and then we get down into the category level data as well. So when I'm looking specifically at financial services, I can click down into their purchase drivers to best identify people who will use an online-only bank. Now, when we get to this final variable level data, we always give you the exact question wording that the respondent saw. So you have full transparency of the context that this data lives in. Now, with a single click, you can enhance your audience to the exact persona that you want. You'll see my metrics have changed, and by default, we're connecting with an and statement. But this is fully flexible Boolean logic editor, where you don't have to have, a master's in typing out language here. Just a really easy flip of a switch. You can make this and or, include or exclude, to get down to that exact persona. Now, as a starting point, I feel pretty happy with this. So I'm going to go ahead and save my audience and dive into understanding what motivates them, what's important to them, and what are the right questions that we need to be focused on in our qualitative research. To start off, I thought we could take a look at what are some of the broader financial statements that are really important to this audience. The first thing that stands out to me on this screen is they are 2 times more likely than average to say that they are likely to open a new account for an appealing offer. The 2 metrics that we're always going to be focused on throughout this presentation, we're looking at index, which tells us how much more or less likely our audience is to possess that trait, and also composition, which is a scale metric that tells us what percentage of our audience possesses this trait. Now, looking at this here, maybe that is actually the audience that we want to be talking to, right? We know that right now they're intenders, we know they're online only, but we're prepared to offer an incentive. And I want to understand, well, what incentive would that audience be interested in? Understanding that this research is always iterative. We can click into this attribute and really quickly layer this into our existing audience definition. As I pull this back up, you'll see we have our original audience as well as this new attribute on top. So I'm going to go ahead and save this because I feel good about that sizing. I think this is the right audience. So we'll call this account intenders, online only, plus incentive. Now I want to keep my first audience. At this point, you could decide if you're building out contrasting audiences that you want to compare, or we could simply hide it for the time being. Now, as I mentioned, from here, I think it's really important to understand what does that mean? And we know they want, an appealing offer, but let's think about what does an appealing offer mean to this audience? So I've searched through our taxonomy to pull in what are the top considerations that people are looking for in a bank. And in this view, as we continue this exploration, we see the top 2 things that pop out. They want a bonus for direct deposits, and they want a bonus for opening a new account. So you know exactly the 2 things when you get into that focus group. Well, what do you need to be drilling down onto? What does that bonus structure mean to them? What does it look like? But you've already set the stage for exactly what that offer needs to be. Now, when you're working with this data, we offer a couple different ways to customize the way that you're working with it. Right now, we've been working with sorted by index, so we understand what's really unique about our audience, what are some of those efficiencies lie, but we could also sort by composition if we want to understand at scale What is most of my audience experiencing? What are the table stakes that we absolutely must have to even be in consideration? We have this bar chart view, but we also have a card view that you could use, really popular in a lot of our business reporting because it gives you these key metrics, but also a nice summary of what that data point means. It can be a really nice visual way to tell a story and maybe even take these graphics directly into your focus group to test. We also give you a table view, a scatter plot. So there's a lot of different ways as you're crafting, your idea of what's important to this audience, how you can structure your story. So we've looked at, identifying the right audience, how we got to that really quickly without having to spend a ton of time upfront on quantitative research. We've looked at some of the drivers that impact the way this audience is thinking about their banking experience. And then from here, we still need a full understanding of who this audience is and how we can speak to them. What does that creative need to look like? And maybe that's traditionally what you would test in a focus group. But we do also offer you the opportunity to consider if qualitative research is really even needed. Are there times that you could save time and money and get to the creative content you need, on the dime? One of the ways that we're solving this for a lot of our clients is this full 360 understanding we have of the US consumer. So in these curated reports that we have are a series of dynamically updated insights that are really designed to drive you towards those aha moments about your audience, to understand what is most important, what is most salient about this population. Looking at, not just their demographics, but really what makes them unique. What are the personal values they possess, the psychological drivers that impact the decisions they're making? How are they spending their time from hobbies, a daily routine? And we can drill down into this really deeply through our personal value report. These personal values are informed by the research conducted by social psychologist Shalom Schwartz, whose research was shown to be cross-culturally stable and connected to purchase outcome. So when you think about crafting, what do these creatives need to be? It's a really solid academic place to start. And we're showing you not just what these personal values are, but they come here with a fully fleshed out understanding of how that impacts the way a person is living day to day. How do they interact with others? How do they think about themselves? What motivates them? And at the end, we give you tips for each one for the themes that you can actually start to incorporate into that creative. So maybe you do want to test these in your focus group. You've come in now with a really refined understanding of who this audience is, but there are times that we've also seen that this is able to replace that process as well. Now, because we have research that is updated, faster than anyone else's, we're in field 6 times a year, we also have a pulse on what is most important to this audience right now. So if we want to understand, a lot of people have had to make some significant changes to their lifestyle because of the changes we've seen with higher prices due to inflation, due to shortages. How is that impacting the way that, our target audience is currently moving through the world? Still sorted by scale here, we see the number one thing that pops up is they're going out less. We can also see that they're 20% more likely than average to say that they're going into debt right now. So what does that mean, right, for the bonuses that we've decided that we want to offer, for the way that we're speaking to this audience at this time? So there's a lot that we've looked at that can really start to inform the strategy for this product, the way we're speaking to these audiences, the creatives. And sometimes this is traditionally the point where, it becomes great, we have all this information, and now what do we do with that? All right, survey real estate is premium when you're doing these pre and post focus group studies. So one of the ways that we solve for that is through a really robust media planning taxonomy. We tell you not just what people are consuming, but where and how they're consuming it. So you can take all of these findings that we've identified together today and put it in the right place for this audience. We can look at if there's streamers on what platforms, the social media networks that they might belong to, what kind of content are they consuming, from the newspapers they're reading, to the magazines, to the apps by category. And this is all just the 30,000 foot view understanding of, where you can find this audience. Now, here's where it gets, really highly actionable. You can actually take this exact audience that we've defined and now push it into the digital ecosystem. So that connectivity, right, to the digital ecosystem we talked about earlier, that addressable number, you can take these audiences and send them directly to a platform for activation. You can do this for your paid media, for CTV, and then also for social. And in that way, the research that you're doing isn't going through 3 rounds of telephone before you're even speaking to your end customer, right? It's a really nice way to maintain that integrity of the research you're conducting and the decisions you're making and respecting that data fidelity. So in sum, we are able to really speed up the process for qualitative research by getting, the answers that you need faster. You can totally cut out any kind of, preliminary research or really refine that. Get into the room with the right questions, with the most relevant content for the people you're speaking to. And then to actually bring that research into the world through activation as well. Now, we have some time at the end here, so I'd love to open this back up for any questions that you might have.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for that great demo. I love what Resonate has to offer. We do have lots of questions for you here today. So for those who may have missed it, was all of that coming from the 120K survey?
So everything that we look at today is coming from our U.S. consumer study. But we do, have these predictive models as well. So if you ever wanted to explore onboarding first-party data, we are able to tie that in as well.
Awesome, thank you. Do you only have U.S. data?
Yes. So our U.S. consumer study focus is on the U.S. data set.
Great. Let's see. The attributes are great, but what if there's a question I cannot find an answer to in the platform? What would you say about that?
That's a great question. So we do have a really robust taxonomy, but we're also really flexible. And we have a couple different ways that you could bring custom research into the platform as well. First being you can ask custom questions. So if that's a one-off question that you want to bring in, but we can also bring in fully formed segmentation research as well. So if you have a typing tool that's been developed, really popular use case is to actually bring that typing tool into the platform so you can understand them better as well.
Awesome. And how often is this data set updated to stay current with changes in beliefs and habits?
So our US consumer study is updated 6 times per year, but our behavioral data stream is updated nightly. So as people's behaviors start to change, our algorithms are catching that on a daily basis. So you have the freshest view of what's happening. So for example, if someone moves from a different life stage, all of a sudden we start to see them reading about, maybe different baby products. Our algorithms will pick that up and maybe start to identify that as someone expecting a child.
That's really great to hear. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you so much for all of our viewers for tuning in today. I hope you all have a fantastic day.